Welcome to Field Notes for Pastors, a conversational podcast for pastors and others in ministry as we explore our soul-deep work in the fields of the Lord. Whether you're in a ministry season of fullness or famine, we want to explore themes around Paul's words in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. In today's episode, I am just so thankful to welcome Winn Collier as we explore the topic of pastoral calling and identity. Winn is married to Miska and the father to Wyatt and Seth. A pastor for 29 years, Winn was the founding pastor of All Souls Charlottesville and is an Episcopal priest. He currently serves at Western Theological Seminary in Holland, Michigan, as director of the Eugene Peterson Center for Christian Imagination, and as associate professor of pastoral theology and Christian imagination. Winn received a PhD from the University of Virginia, where his work centered on the intersection of literary fiction and religion, particularly the sacramental landscape of Wendell Berry's fictional town of Port William. I'm especially thrilled to have Winn with us today because Winn has been deeply encouraging to me in my own pastoral calling, because his voice has provided very meaningful direction in recent years for me, and I consider him a friend. So welcome to the podcast, Winn.
Hey, Matt. I'm really glad you invited me to join you, so I'm glad to be here.
It's a gift. I'm really thankful. I'm just wondering if we can start out a little bit with you giving a little background on what you're up to now, and perhaps also just a little bit of background in ministry. I mentioned a few things there, but maybe you can give us a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am the son of a pastor, so it's in my blood in some ways, but I also resisted it for a long time because in the world I grew up in, there was a lot of expectations that I was supposed to take on the mantle, but the bottom line for me was I ran in some ways, but the story of Jesus so captured my heart that it felt like there was nothing that I could do that felt more important. And I don't think I realized till maybe decades later what that actually was, like what I was actually responding to. But I think being a pastor, doing pastoral work has been so woven into my life. That and writing together, they're like dual, vocations, but because it's an expression of my deep longing, my deep ache, my own desire for God to heal and make whole and make right and bring shalom into the world, and to get to be a part of that has certainly not been easy, and it's probably a pretty awful career choice, if we're looking at these things through that lens. But there's a fire that just wouldn't go out. So I primary places of ministry were Clemson, South Carolina, where I was pastor of a university church, which was like 85% college students. So that was just astounding and wild, and always careening toward the edge of falling apart. And then we moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, where we helped to start All Souls Charlottesville. We were there for 12 years before coming here. So that's little bio bits.
I love it. No, that's really, really helpful just to get a kind of lens into your experience. And felt like when I was hearing you say, I'm the son of a pastor, it just sounds like a fictional book about to unfold in that title. I don't know why that kind of struck me that way.
Yeah.
I know you have spent a lot of time yourself, like thinking about this as a pastor yourself. You've thought about what it means to be a pastor. And then you're doing a lot of work with the Peterson Center and at Western, pouring into future pastors and others in ministry. So I'm going to start with another kind of basic question, but maybe eager to hear how you answer this. What is a pastor? How would
Yeah.
you define what it is to be a pastor when you reflect on it from your experience and other things?
Well, it's funny the way you asked the question, because it is a basic question, and yet it seems like a question that we fumble or degrade constantly, or at least the way we respond to it. If I had to say in one word what being a pastor was about, I would just say God. Um, and by that, I mean the triune God revealed to us in Jesus Christ and made real to us through the Spirit. That it's not about God language, religious infrastructure. We're not attempting to just sort of pay tribute to another social reality that has some esoteric / mystical, and I'm doing this word in air quotes, spiritual good in the world that we don't quite understand, but it's actually a response to the inbreaking of Jesus Christ in human history. And that now as pastors, we have been called to point to, live within, retell, embrace, be embraced by, repent within that story over and over and over and over again. So the things that we most love to do as pastors, like be with someone when their world is falling apart or they have weeks to live. The reason why we are grateful to be in that place is precisely because we believe we are able to bear witness to the fact that God is with that person in that profound need. Or one of my favorite things to do, as you know now, is I love to pray prayers of blessing and benediction over people. Because, I mean, most of the time when I do that, I do find my heart getting moved because I am reflecting what I believe to be true about God's heart for that person, that I'm just passing to this person what God has already said.
Yes.
So it's not, in a way, I'm playing my part, but it's not really my blessing. I get a chance to tell someone, this is how God sees you. This is how God wants to move on your behalf. And when we preach, preaching gets really twisted when it becomes about making sure we really have some good zingers that move, get people excited or make people walk away thinking, oh, that person's a really good speaker. I mean, if people walk away from me in a sermon saying, oh man, he's a really good speaker. I mean, if that's all it is, man, we have problems.
Yeah.
Sometimes they should people should walk away going, I'm a little confused about that. Not just because I'm confusing, which certainly happens for sure, but because we're encountering profound mysteries and graces. And so, one of my favorite descriptions of a pastor is I once heard, being a pastor is being with God with the people on your heart. And that pretty much sums it up for me. It's about rolling up the sleeves, knee deep in the muck of life with God's beautiful people, and doing all of that with a profound attentiveness to the deepest reality of what is real, which is God.
I love how you're getting us reoriented right away. Okay, this is about God. And all through what you were saying, I'm just hearing this phrase, bearing witness, in my mind, just that we're bearing witness to who God is. We're being present. Even when you talk about blessing, I've experienced, both through the podcast you do, but also in your presence being blessed. Yeah, just that you're speaking what God has already spoken. I love that way. Can you say that phrase again of this? What did you say? With God.
Being a pastor is being with God, with the people on your heart.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many of us who are pastors who struggle with that because we do think, oh, I've got to be the best preacher. I have to have this strategy all thought out. And the way that you're framing this is very different. So let's just talk a little bit about the challenges in our contemporary moment about pastoring. I mean, there's a lot, but why do you think it's so challenging for pastors and those in ministry to kind of maintain that God-centered, God-oriented way of approaching the calling? Why is that so hard?
Well, I think we are shaped by the culture in which we have lived and breathed. And that culture is all about achievement, accomplishment. And the church, at least in North America, has been so powerful for so long, had such privilege, that I think we've just sort of bought into our pastoral work as, at times, we wouldn't quite say this, but among other things, it's kind of just another career choice. And we began to listen to the expectations of others who they want us to be, leadership gurus and management experts and fundraising Goliaths. And much of the church these days is focused on personality.
Yep.
And so, too often when a church is looking for a pastor, and we've trained them in this, so this is not, but there's a temptation to think, well, what we really need is a really charismatic person who's going to carry the church and attract younger people and newer people, and that means that person's own charisma, personality becomes the dominant thing. And once you have stepped in to that world, that expectation, it will swallow you whole.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like from the get-go, the expectations. I mean, if you were to go today on, grab whatever church ministry job posting site or denominational place you want to go and look at the job descriptions of what, I mean, there's religious, categories there, and they will say preaching, and they will have some things about character, hopefully. But if you really dig deep, it's too rare that I encounter seeing some document like that and walk away thinking, oh, what they really want is a pastor.
Yeah.
Even though I think in our deep heart, that is what we want. So once we've taken on these expectations, I mean, it's really tough, particularly when it starts to work against our ego. I mean, I know I want people to like me. I don't want people to not like me. I want people to think I'm a good leader, that I'm good at what I do. If half the church starts leaving, I definitely have a problem, So I think there's some of that. And then there's fear. I mean, we're, in many quarters these days, there's talk about the church surviving. What is the future going to be? There's fear. And then there's just the fact that we're just human. And we shouldn't be surprised that we as pastors stray and give in to temptations, because God's people have been doing that since day one. And we're no different. In fact, in many ways, the temptation can be more stark at times. And the only person who has ever not succumbed to that temptation is our brother Jesus. But that means the only hope for us is to be really close to our brother.
Yeah, we have to be living that with God life, with Jesus Emmanuel,
Yeah.
walking. I think, the church that I serve is part of a family of churches in our area. And I think there are times where I've talked with some of the other pastors and you feel that push of personality, to be a personality centered pastor, to become the next great preacher. There's a kind of a history of great preaching in our churches. And so there's that temptation that I have to become this. And how quickly the equation or kind of the framework shifts to being so centered upon ourselves, or so centered upon our abilities or our gifts, all these different things that you talked about. And really underneath of it, I think, are some of those things like fear, and that just can drive us in so many different directions.
Yeah.
I'm sure there must be things that you have been able to do, or ways that you have faced into that when you think about how you have nourished your own pastoral calling. How have you done that? Like when you served in Clemson is one thing. When you served at All Souls Charlottesville, I'm sure it's another thing. And in the role you have now, how have you nourished that really God-centric vision of what it means to be a pastor and your own spiritual health and vitality?
Well, one thing that helps is being married to Miska, because Miska has a big old BS meter, and and loves to, or not. I don't know if she loves to. That's probably not the right way to put it. She is comfortable. She is very comfortable naming it when she sees it, and so I have a companion who helps me to see, when the ego is rising its ugly head.
Yeah, don't you love that? I know Kelly's the same thing for me. I
know.
actually am having her doing one of the episodes for this as well, and I
I
just
love that.
know
It's great.
she's not going to let me get away with any high and mighty little statements. I mean, yeah, it's just a gift. I know.
Yeah. I mean, we need that,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
much, for sure. That's part of it. Part of it is a desire. I have this desire for things to be genuine and real. And I know how my soul begins to feel when I move out of that space of being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is just a grace that's also difficult, but I've experienced a lot of pain in my story, and then, in my family, and there's something about pain, if we'll allow it, that keeps us close to grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another thing is I have had some encounters, been in some places where I really saw the underbelly of religious power and manipulation, and it repulsed me.
Hmm.
I had to reckon with, what does it mean to take Paul seriously when he said that God's strength is actually more present in weakness than in our strength. And I think that's a real inversion from how, I mean, any of us who are pastors, I mean, we're going to quote the verse, we're going to preach the verse, but I don't know that we genuinely operate as if that's the case. Yep. Because we try to hide our weakness, and we try to always come across like we've, got things figured out, or we kind of know the answer, or when we're supposed to be vulnerable, we can feign some vulnerability because that's the right thing to do. But it's not coming from a deep place of the soul. And so I think becoming more and more, and this is not in any way to say I don't struggle with this a lot, but becoming more comfortable with being weak, and with other people knowing I'm weak, and that I flounder and I screw up, and there's lots of things I simply do not know. and trusting in the grace of God that somehow in the mystery of God's way of working, that somehow God's strength is actually made more visible and more prominent and sturdier in my life when I operate in the truthful place of how much I need God.
Yeah. I just think that is so scary to so many pastors, I think, because we're,
me too.
Trained, like you say, trained to know how to do things well, trained to be in non-anxious presence in a hospital room or things like that, or, how to make our sermons effective and polished and all these things. And I think there's a level of authenticity we're comfortable with and can even use, like I think you said this, can use kind of a fake authenticity to seem like we're more effective. And then there's this next level of vulnerability and weakness that I think terrifies us. I think it terrifies me sometimes because we're wondering, how is somebody going to use that against us?
Yeah.
Or are we going to lose our job because, we don't have the answer or something like that? And yet, like you're saying, the words of Paul, that God's power is made perfect in weakness. I mean, that's just such a tremendous statement to wrestle with. If somebody's out there hearing us talking about this and they're saying, yeah, but when in my setting, I would get crucified if I were weak. I mean, what would you say to somebody who's wrestling with what we're talking about vulnerability and weakness?
Well, Jesus got crucified.
That's true.
That's why we have the word, in our strong in our vocabulary. Well, I mean, these things definitely require discernment, which is why we all need other pastors and spiritual directors and guides alongside us. To be weak doesn't mean that we lay down our strength.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that we never assert anything or that we have a false humility. I think what it really just means is it's a statement of reality. Humans are weak.
Yes.
End of story. Humans are weak. And so the fact that no one needs to pretend to be weak. It is
right.
If no one knows their weakness, then that's the problem, right?
Right.
So it's not, I mean, I've been in circles before where there's also like a kind of a ooey gooey, I don't know how to explain it. This is making for bad podcasting
you're
right
great.
here. But like, where it's just like this, the weakness that Paul is referring to is an honest reckoning of the state of our reality. And it's possible to operate in weakness and not necessarily, hang the rope to somebody else to like string you up. Because I think it comes out of genuine humility, which is wanting good for those that you're with.
Yeah.
Having said that, and this is very dangerous to say because I don't know anyone's situation, but if someone genuinely is in a place where they feel like if I am honest about the state of my soul, or if I come across as if I don't have clear-cut answers for something that I'm expected to have an answer for right away, and there's this kind of pressure that's not coming from the Spirit of God, well, I mean, eventually you have to get out of that. You just can't live well in that space. But I also think there's a way to be with people, to love them well, to speak truth from an honest but non-manipulative way, that over time people can start to relax their own shoulders. Because oftentimes the reasons why people would crucify us is because they're afraid.
Right.
And they want us to be the sturdy thing upon which they anchor their life. Well, that's idolatrous. Jesus Christ is the only one in whom we can anchor our life. So we do have to continually resist the temptation to be God for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even that invitation for others to enter into weakness is a part of that, to accept their weakness and then to walk towards God together, which is, I think, part of what Paul may have been trying to do there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into his motivations, but we know the Corinthians were kind of high on themselves and their spiritual gifts and abilities. And I think he's trying to show them the Philippians 2 kind of way of Jesus is down and among, it's not high and above.
Yeah.
And maybe if we can invite people into that, it does, yeah, like you said, helps them relax their shoulders and say, oh, we're in this together. We're journeying together.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You've mentioned a couple times here too, like the importance of people. You kind of joked about Miska being the one who can puncture your pride bubble, but I know you have other people in your life who can help speak. And maybe this is a little bit related to the weakness, the places where you can be just absolutely vulnerable and open as a pastor. How have others played a role in that nurture of that sense of identity and calling as a pastor for you? What kind of role have good community around you been?
Yeah, friendship is essential for me. I can't think of a season of my life where I wasn't heartbroken or distraught or careening, where there wasn't a person who God didn't use to put their arm around me, to speak a word to me, to take time with me, to remind me of true things, to help me to move toward health. I could just think of face after face. I can think of particular moments of sitting in a room with someone. I can think of being out in the West Texas under the vast sky, looking up at stars and being with a few other people. And I think of those kind of stories over and over again. And it's absolutely essential.
Mm-hmm. Just such a hard thing sometimes for pastors to get a hold of. Who are the people we can be absolutely honest with?
Yeah. It is. It is hard. We have to seek it out and pray for it and then pursue it as well, which is sometimes that's a hard thing to do.
I know that just because I'm connected to you with this, with the Peterson Center, you're doing some things that kind of are aimed at this with the Order of the Kingfisher. I don't know if this is something, I'm not trying to make it an advertisement for that, but I know that's part of what you're trying to cultivate. Do you want to speak to that just a little bit if people wanted to find out what the Order of the Kingfisher is and how you're trying to cultivate community for pastors?
Yeah. So part of what we're doing at the Peterson Center is attempting to continue the witness that Eugene had as his heart broke and his fire was lit about what it means to be a pastor in our context, in our time. And the Order of the Kingfisher imagery is imagery that was important to Eugene. It comes from Gerard Manley Hopkins' poem. But the whole idea of the kingfisher is that a kingfisher does consistently, methodically what it's meant to do. And our hope is that as pastors, we would do what we are meant to do. And so we have a pastoral rule that names some of the ways we believe in our moment that what this looks like to be this kind of pastor. And then we help people who are able to be in groups, either geographically or on Zoom, to meet. And there's not a curriculum. There's not it's not a book club, even though we might read some books. But the purpose is like to be friends on this way of following Jesus into the old and ancient path of being a faithful pastor who stands like a bulwark against all those things that would degrade this calling, degrade the dignity of God's people, degrade the beauty of the church, and that we would be pastors who, in the context of friendship, can over years become more and more faithful, more and more whole, more and more human. And the saddest thing to me is encountering someone who's spent, decades of their life as a pastor, and when you're with them, they seem like a shell of a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're doing all the tasks, maybe, sometimes maybe even really, really well. They've got it down, but they're not much of a human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's genuinely heartbreaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for myself, I want to live differently.
Yeah.
And I think God wants that for us as well. And so the Order of the Kingfisher is just one way of attempting to do that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for what you've helped cultivate by God's grace, of course, at the Peterson Center and with everything that's there. I'll put some links in the show notes so people could find some of that and look into it a little bit more, because I know it's kind of been a godsend to me to be able to connect into community, like-minded pastors, just traveling together and not being alone, laughing, crying, praying, reading, learning together. So huge gift. I'm so grateful for that. If I can kind of build off that just reference to Peterson and connect to somebody else that I know that we both have a enjoyment of or appreciation for, and that's Wendell Berry. This connection between Peterson and Wendell Berry's work kind of arises a few different places in Peterson's writings. But in Under the Unpredictable Plant, he describes pastoral work through the lens of agrarian work, which you've studied. I've been doing a lot of work on this, and I just want to read a quote from Peterson from the book. He says, "I substitute my pastoral vocabulary for Berry's agricultural, and find Berry urging me to be mindful of my congregation and reverence before it. Long before I arrive on the scene, the Spirit is at work. I must fit into what is going on. I have no idea yet what is taking place here. I must study the contours, understand the weather, know what kind of crops grow in the climate, be in awe of the complex intricacies between past and present, between the people in the parish and those outside." I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I know he says in another place, every time Berry mentions something about the farm, he substitutes kind of the parish or the church in there. And when we think about like pastoral calling and pastoral identity, how for you has some of the work you've done on Wendell Berry linked in with your sense of what it means to be a pastor? You want to comment on anything there? Has anything leapt out to you from Berry's work for your work as a pastor?
Yeah, and in many ways, I was led to Wendell because of Eugene and because of this intuition that Eugene had about how fitting Wendell's vision of the world was for our own vocation, and it just made a lot of sense to me, and it also put me at rest because I get nervous, and I didn't have vocabulary for this till later, but I get nervous when our pastoral theology, our pastoral thinking, our framework becomes more and more theoretical. And I do. I mean, just intuitively, I intuitively know, like, of course, there's a ton of similarities between being a pastor and being a farmer. That is absolutely true. And I think you could also say about some other things. I've noticed how much I really love being around carpenters. We've had a carpenter at our house recently, and I don't know what it is. And I have a good friend in Charlottesville who's a carpenter, and I've always loved being with him, being in his shop. And I think there's some interesting, I don't even know why. It's just like, it feels familiar to me, even though I know nothing. I'm a complete imbecile when it comes to like the tools, and, he helped me make a door for Miska once. We would give each other a handmade gift for Christmas, and I gave him he helped me make a door, and I mean, he basically built it, and I got to. He held my hand a couple times, because I was moving the saw or something. But anyway, all that to say, when it relates to farming and to Wendell, it intuitively makes sense. I think Jaber Crow, which I think should be in the running for one of the last century's great American novels.
Mm-hmm.
Jaber is one of the best pastor characters in all of literature to me, even though that's not explicitly, that's not, Wendell didn't set out to write a pastor, even though he kind of did.
He did, yeah, it just happened.
Jaber went to seminary, and so all of those things. But I think even at another level, I think it's selling it short if we think of it merely as Wendell's fiction being almost like an analogy or something. I think that's fine, but I think at a deeper level, what's shared is Wendell is describing reality and what it means to be a good human living within a community alongside other humans and becoming more responsible for living with fidelity to a place and a people. And that's a Christian vision. Yes. I mean, it just so happens that we've forgotten it, and that's unfortunately too often times what we present as a Christian vision actually conflicts with that, which is a big problem. And so there's big questions to ask there. But to me, the deep resonance is the kind of reality that Wendell points to is real. It's true about the world and about how we as humans are to be in the world. And so inherently, it's going to have immense traction with the world as pastors that we're trying to live in and call people to and be present within ourselves and be committed to. And so there's just all kinds of threads that are running back and forth.
Yeah, so much about place, loving attention to a place. I mean, you see that all through Barry's work, whether it's his fiction or nonfiction, his poetry. And I think that's a huge part of what it means to be a pastor. You talked about attention earlier in our conversation, just how vital that is for our sense of calling. And and I think even that's part of that connection with craftsmanship or artistry that you're talking about with the woodworking or carpentry. There's something there, this lingering with loving attention to a work of art or to a great door. I wouldn't know because probably like you, I'd need somebody holding my hand along the planer and the saw. But there's something about that carries over, I think, to the agrarian vision for the world that is very resonant with the Christian vision.
Yeah. It has been for me. I know it's been a deep education.
Well, it's so good when just to have time with you, to have conversation with you. I just feel like it's a huge privilege to know you and be able to have a conversation to share with others. If people want to kind of catch up with you or follow what you're doing, how can they do that? If they want to find out more about your own writing or your work with the Peterson Center, where should they look?
Yeah. Well, Matt, you're a good pastor. You love people. And every time I'm with you, I'm grateful for the integrity of your heart and your mind. And so I'm grateful for the invitation, and I'm just grateful that you exist, that God put you to the plow doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
If people want to connect with me, they can go to winncollier.substack.com. They can also connect with the Peterson Center at petersoncenter.org.
Perfect. I'll make sure to put those things in show notes as well. Thank you for those kind words. And the feeling is mutual, I think. I've experienced the way that you are a blessing in the truest sense of that to so many people. So thank you for that. Thanks for being an encouragement, a pastor to pastors. Really grateful for you.
Well, you're welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Field Notes for Pastors. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. Give us a like or subscribe to this podcast on platforms where you listen. This podcast is linked with my forthcoming book, The Pastor as Gardener, a renewed vision for ministry, set to be released by Erdman's Publishing on March 24th, 2026. You can pre-order the book anywhere good books are found. And if you do pre-order the book, I have put together some resources as a gift to you. Find out how to access those pre-order resources via my website, mwerickson.com. Until next time, may you experience God's grace wherever God has planted you.